Hello and welcome to my video where I'm going to show you how to knit the Rickrack rib stitch. Before we start, I just want to talk about the C2F and C2B cables, which are two-stitch cables. These cables are formed by simply passing a knit stitch over another knit stitch, either to the right or to the left. There are a couple of other ways to work these two-stitch cables, which I show elsewhere on my channel, but today I'll be using the method where you work the second stitch before the first, which doesn't require a cable needle. This particular pattern involves a C2F or cross to front cable and a C2B purlwise or cross to behind purlwise cable, which looks exactly like a C2B cable from the right side of the knitting. So effectively you're doing a two-stitch cable every row, and from the right side that looks like alternating between C2F and C2B cables in quick succession. And that's what creates the fun zigzag effect. As you can see, I've already worked a few repeats, and now I'll show you how to do this yourself. The first thing you need to do is cast on a multiple of 3 stitches plus 1, and I cast on 19. I did this using the long tail cast on, but you could use your favourite method. Once you've done that, you can work the pattern as follows. So for row 1, which represents the right side or the front of the knitting, you need to begin by purling a stitch. So make sure the working yarn is at the front and purl 1. We then need to take the working yarn between the needles to the back and do a C2F or cross to front cable. To do this, we first need to knit through the back loop of the second stitch. So take the right hand needle down through the back of the second stitch and do all of the usual steps of a knit stitch. Make sure you only bring one strand of yarn through to the front, ignoring the first stitch completely. Don't slip this stitch off the needle, but instead just knit into the first stitch as you normally would. And when you slip this stitch off the needle, slip the second stitch off as well. And that's the C2F completed. And as you can see, this cable travels to the left. Then bring the working yarn to the front again and purl a stitch. And then you just repeat C2F and purl 1 over and over until the end of the row. So make sure the working yarn is at the back, knit through the back loop of the second stitch, but don't slip the stitch off the needle. Then knit into the first stitch, and this time slip this stitch plus the second stitch off the needle. Then bring the yarn to the front and purl a stitch. C2F, purl 1, and so on. And here you can see the result of that row. And then for row 2, which represents the wrong side or the back of the knitting, you need to begin with a knit stitch. So make sure the working yarn is at the back and knit 1. Then we need to do a C2B purlwise cable, so bring the working yarn to the front and purl into the front of the second stitch without slipping it off the needle. So take the right hand needle down into the front of that second stitch, do all of the usual steps of a purl stitch, making sure to only bring one strand of yarn through to the back, ignoring the first stitch completely, then purl into the first stitch as you normally would, and then slip off both stitches. And that's a C2B purlwise cable completed. Then take the working yarn to the back again and knit a stitch. And then you just repeat C2B purlwise and knit 1 over and over until the end of the row. So make sure the working yarn is at the front, then purl into the second stitch without slipping it off the needle, Then purl into the first stitch as you normally would. And slip this stitch plus the second stitch off the needle. Then take the working yarn to the back again and knit a stitch. And repeat this until the end of the row. So do a C2B purlwise, knit a stitch, and so on. And here you can see how those C2B purlwise cables look. And then you just repeat these 2 rows as many times as you wish. I really like this pattern and it's a fun alternative to regular rib. Plus it has a good amount of stretch. Note that if you want to knit this in the round, then this is the pattern you would need to follow instead. Another note is that when you want to bind off, you should bind off in pattern. I recommend, after finishing row 2, you bind off in a purl 1 knit 2 pattern, and that will make the bind off edge blend in with your knitting. If you're not sure how to bind off in pattern, I have a video all about that if you'd like to know more. Here are the instructions for that bind off. And that's it, that's how you knit the Rickrack rib stitch. I really hope you found this useful, and thank you very much for watching.